And we have another topic we have yet to delve into tonight. That's how much is going on. And it is Chris Paul being traded to the Golden State Warriors. Martin, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's funny, Chris, I don't know if you noticed, but have you noticed in your morning meetings for First Things First that I've been on the Zoom as well? Have you even seen that?
Are you serious?
Yeah,
no.
I've been working on your show since Wednesday.
I don't like, I'm just kind of on list. I mean, I'm talking, but I don't have like the audio, the visual.
Sure, and it's not like you guys.
Wow, so you helping with our show?
Yeah, so I've been cutting tape for your show since Wednesday, and I will all next week as well. I bring that up to say my reaction to the Chris Paul trade is the very same one I saw you have on TV as it was happening, right? As it was happening, and then Wiles was trying to spring, and this is not a joke. I'm dead serious. And you kind of had the Alonzo Mourning gif of like, you looked, you furrowed your brow, you twisted your eyes a little bit, and said, hey, hold on a second, wait, what, really? Then you kind of shrugged aside a little bit, thought about it a little bit more. It's like, well, okay. So I guess I'm kind of like, really? Well, okay. In terms of this Chris Paul trade, I love the fact that in a salary dump of Jordan Poole, if that's what the organization felt was the best thing to do, I disagree with that in a part, but I'll get that in a second.
Do you?
I'll get
so
to
you
that.
think they should have kept Poole? Okay.
Well, I'll get to that in just a second. But in a salary dump for Jordan Poole, in a league in which we're trying to get rid of, like, move salary, stuff like that, to get a guy back who has the basketball intelligence of Chris Paul, I think is a win. Right? I think that's a big win, especially when you see how we talk about Golden State having this chaotic offense or a chaos offense. Well, I think we really saw what chaos was in Golden State's offense as Jordan Poole got more possessions in more high leverage situations. Right? It was a little bit like, what are you doing in that moment? Right. Now, part of the thing is I do not believe that necessarily going in on the youth movement, going in on the old movement in Golden State is the best idea. I think they kind of lucked into the last one, the last ring that they were able to get. And while you have Steph Curry as an all-time great, and I'm not trying to... But
what do you, to me, I think you have to maximize Steph's prime. Which he still is in.
I agree,
right?
But I question whether or not.
Go for it.
But I question whether or not maintaining the triumvirate of Klay Thompson and Draymond Green at this point is maximizing Steph's prime. Like, I think that.
Let me ask you this: if they have Steph, their big three, plus Wiggins, and they have Looney, and they get some size. It doesn't have to be great size, but just size, a 7-footer, a Mason Plumlee, just throw that out. Brooke Lopez, somebody like that. Are they not right there in the championship hunt again? I think, you need some depth, but, they can get that.
I mean, they'll be a playoff. They'll win around, but when I'm looking at...
With the Brooke Lopez, they're not a contender?
I'm saying they'll win a round or two. But I'm saying if I was slotting them, there wouldn't be my favorite and they wouldn't be second. And I think that I would probably I'd have Denver above them and maybe 2 or 3 teams from the Eastern Conference above them in that slot, because I don't believe that Klay Thompson is the player that he once was, and that's no knock.
But he's still good. He led the league in 3-pointers made last year.
I get that, but when you were watching the postseason, you was watching that Lakers series, a lot of the reason why, think about this team was brought to the brink against the Sacramento Kings. And Domantas Sabonis won't shoot a free throw line jumper. And De'Aaron Fox had broke the tip of his finger. And the guy like Malik Monk.
But that's why they need to add to it. You know what I'm saying? And they had we know they had all types of mess going on in their locker room. So let's get to the Jordan Poole thing. I thought they definitely, it was right to ship him out. It's not his fault he got punched. You can talk about he had attitude problems once he got signed and all that all you want. He still didn't deserve to get sucker punched, obviously. But that being the case, they needed to get him out of there and get the stench of that incident out of their locker room. I like Chris Paul. Obviously, he's an all-time great Hall of Famer. I got to be honest, though, Martin. I think they should have and could have, I would think could have, but definitely I would have liked them to get more for Jordan Poole than a 38-year-old Chris Paul who doesn't fit their style of play.
And so that I think they'll end up changing the style of play just a slight bit. I agree with you, though.
To what?
I agree with you to a point.
If they're going to be a high pick and roll team, that's not going to suit them that well.
But I do wonder with Steph because like the thing about when everybody was talking about the Lakers and the Warriors, how old the Lakers were. Like Steph is not a young man, like in terms of the NBA comparison, and he runs like he's young. He hasn't been hurt in umpteenth years after he had his ankle injuries to start his career. But I do wonder if all the miles that he's running on a consistent basis, you want to talk about leaning into Steph's career, understandably.
He seems fine. I mean,
I'm not saying, we're trying to keep out the runway.
The thing that turned them around, the thing that got them to be what they became was running the motion offense, the high player movement, high passing, high ball movement offense. They went to the high pick and roll with Steph, playing like most point guards play out of necessity against the Lakers.
Sure.
And obviously it didn't work. But there is no way they would not have a chance. They would not be better running the same offense essentially that most NBA teams run.
No, I don't think they would either. But I think
which is what Chris Paul kind of brings.
But just humor me for a moment here. It seemed like Golden State has an offensive system, right? But Steph Curry and Clay are the two guys that can pretty much shoot whatever the hell shot they want, right? And really, it's Steph and then Clay. Like, Steph is the one that is kind of rotating and managing that scenario. He's one of one. For whatever reason, the Warriors seem to put Poole in like a mini Steph role almost. Right. And it was like, I don't think that had any, like, I think that was a failed thought concept.
They got a championship out of it.
Well, yeah, but I think that in general, though, and, I subscribe a lot to getting punched in the face at work. That would really throw me off, and I wouldn't want to be there either, right? I think, and especially the response to what happened after the fact. If DJ Alex Teicher comes here and punches me in the face, I'm not saying he's got to lose his job, but I am saying we're going to have
he got to get suspended.
Yeah. Somebody's got to do something, and it ain't going to be me. You know what I mean? It's like, that's what I do feel that. But I think that when you have a Chris Paul here, if he watched Kyle Lowry in the last 2 seasons and said, I think he should look at that and be like, this is my blueprint. This is how I can get this done. I can come off the bench for a team that has already established guys around me, and even though Miami didn't have a super established point guard, he's coming off the bench, right, for the younger guys who are playing in front of him. When it matters, when it's crunch time, generally he's on the court, right?
Well, maybe. I mean, I think that'll depend on the circumstances. The only basketball reason that I like this, I mean, I don't like it in general, but the only positive basketball reason I see for this trade is that we know they were horrible when Steph was off the floor last year. So now if Chris Paul is running your second unit, presumably you're going to be better than you were a year ago. That's the only reason I like it. And to your point, I don't really like this for Chris Paul, because I still think Chris Paul is a good starting caliber point guard.
See, I don't think so.
Or potentially, he averaged 14 and 8 last year on a team that he was the second best player on a middle seed playoff team. And like he was top 5 in assists. He certainly can't be your first or second best player next season on a great team, but I do think he could be your third.
I think
if he can stay healthy.
So that's I mean, again, that's if was a fifth, we'd all be drunk. Like, that's the thing. The last 3 seasons we've seen Chris Paul.
We're so many teams we saying that about as far as health.
I know, and I know the whole. I'm not trying to relitigate the history of the Clippers, or if Kevin Durant didn't hurt his Achilles, who knows about the Raptors? I'm not trying to do all of that, but I think when you have seen consistently that Chris Paul has gotten injured in the playoffs, that matters to me. Like, the availability matters to me in a high level, because you are only going to play. We saw it this year with Phoenix right now. They only had 4 guys they really loved right? When it came down to it in the playoffs, they were looking for that fifth guy. They were trying to figure it out, and they didn't end up getting it figured out. These championship teams, these teams that make long runs, they have a 6-7 man rotation that is rock solid. They feel good about almost all of these guys. And maybe you're swapping the seventh guy out. Maybe instead of Michael Porter Jr. playing 40 minutes a game, he plays 20 because we're going to pull him out here, put Christian Brown out here because he's going to give us a little bit more in where we actually need. But generally, those rotations are kind of locked in. I think that Golden State didn't have a guy in Jordan Poole. They could play in the playoffs. They do have a guy now in Chris Paul that they can play in the playoffs as long as he can get to the playoffs. You
like the trade.
I like the trade in the sense, but I don't think it's not
there
something. There
needs to be a lot more coming, though.
But I don't think they were winning a championship, before they traded for Chris Paul, they weren't winning the ring. After they traded for Chris Paul, I still don't think they're in winning.
No, they need to get some size.
Exactly. So I don't think.
They need to go out there and get some size.
But I do think on a basketball way, it can work in terms of the things that you were discussing. But again, it's going to come down to can Kevon Looney get 35 rebounds a game because that's what it's going to take.
Nah, they got to get some.
Exactly.
I mean, obviously that's an exaggeration.
So that's what it's going to take. You know, it's going to take more roster building around it. But I think that Chris Paul's a good backup point guard if he can accept that.